I first came to Heavenbound 20 years ago. I was 16 years old, and I was hungry and searching and thirsty to try to find out why I was alive. You know, if I was born and put on this planet to live the life that I had lived from the time I was born up until I was 16 years old, as far as I was concerned, kill me now. There's no point in me living with the life that I have had experienced up till that point. I was in complete despair, and I really didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. And so with this being the 20-year anniversary for Heavenbound, you know, that's when I first came to Heavenbound 20 years ago. So I was 16, and I don't know how many of you know Kenny On, but he was a huge influence and a big part of the reason why I came to Heavenbound. So at the time, I was living in Corona, California, and I was on the wrestling team at Centennial High School in Corona. And in 1995 or 96, Ken On had transferred over from Sunny Hills High School, and he had joined the wrestling team. He was a year older than I was, and he was a good wrestler, and we were pretty close in size, so we would train together. And you know how high school is. The kids will, you know, the wrestlers would sit on one table at lunch break, and you'd have basketball players sitting at another table, and you have, you know, the gangster type kids sitting at another table. Well, anyways, Ken would sit by himself. He would find a table where nobody was sitting. He would sit by himself, and I'd see him just kind of reading, and he was reading a book, and I didn't know it at the time because I was just watching him from afar off, and he was reading the Bible, or he was doing a devotional, and he seemed to just be happy, and he had peace, and it was just something that I hadn't really seen, and I hadn't experienced that with anybody that I was close to. And although Kenny was new to the school, we were wrestling together, and I would, you know, work out with him every day, and it was, for me, I was like confused. Why isn't he hanging out with the other wrestlers? And if he isn't hanging out with us, you know, what is he doing? And then I would see him, and he seemed to be happy, and I would, you know, I remember going to go talk to him, and I was like, you know, what are you doing? And he was reading his Bible, and I'm like, I was confused. I had never really seen anybody do that, especially at high school. So anyhow, I had asked him on a Friday night, and it was typical Friday night to go to the football games, the varsity football games, and the wrestlers would get together. A lot of people would get together. They would, you know, drink some alcohol, drink beer before the game, and go to the game, and then go to a party after. And so I remember asking Ken if he wanted to join myself and some of the other wrestlers, and you know, so let's go out, let's drink some beer, let's go to the football game, let's go to a party. And anyways, he was like, no, he's like, I'm gonna hang out with my other friends. I'm like, what friends? I don't see you hanging out with anybody. He's, oh, you know, my friends from, you know, from church. And I was confused. I'm like, it's Friday night. You're going to hang out with friends from church? What are you going to do? You know, and he's like, well, I don't know, we'll probably have a Bible study and have a prayer meeting. And, you know, these are all things that I had never heard before. So just so you have some background on me, I was not brought up as a Christian, not brought up going to any church, no type of religion, you know, and so this was all foreign to me. And so anyways, to see him and to hear him and have him tell me that he was gonna spend his Friday night going to church and praying, and it was just confusing to me. So as time went by, I ended up going to Ken's house, and I just kept kind of trying to like find out what was going on with him, because he seemed to have a sense of contentment and peace and also some joy, and he was that I had never really seen before, and I was very far from that at that point in my life. So as time went on, Ken had invited me to his house for Bible studies and with his older brother and his parents and stuff. And then, they would, play the guitar and we would have some worship, pray, read the Bible. And I remember asking him if I could go to his church. He would talk about Heavenbound, talk about Pastor Andy, and I'd ask, if I can go. He'd talk about David Choi. I actually remember seeing a picture of David Choi and Kenny, and it looked like it was maybe like a winter formal or prom or something. And David looked like he was like some gangster or something. I'm like, oh man, who's that guy? Is that your friend? And I was, just from looking at the picture, I was thinking, I think I could relate to that guy because he looked like a tough guy. And anyways, Ken just kind of laughed and he's, oh, that's David, and I go, okay. I go, so that he's one of your church friends that you hang out with? I go, I want to go to church, go hang out with you. And Ken was like, no, you should find a church in Corona. And I was like, but I want to go to your church. And he's like, no, you should find a church in Corona. So anyways, I did end up going to a church in Corona, but I had a bad experience. And so ultimately I ended up camping out in front of Ken's house on a Sunday morning. And I drove a 1977 Buick station wagon. So I'm parked like a block and a half down from his house. And I am camping out, and it was early. And I'm just waiting for him to come out of his house and go to church. And I'm thinking, oh, he's going to go to church at like 7 a.m., 8 a.m. So I'm down there early camping out. And I didn't know that, Heavenbound doesn't start church till like 1 p.m., noon, 1 p.m. So anyways, I'm waiting and falling asleep in my car and I'm hungry. And so finally he comes out and I end up following him all the way down to Heavenbound. And so you can imagine he was surprised when he saw me. But right away, Pastor Andy welcomed me in, and I remember Pastor Andy asked me if I wanted to go over the book of Romans with him and commit to the whole summer, and anyways, I made that commitment, and thankfully Pastor Andy and his family, Lisa, and the whole Heavenbound family took me in, and I went from being in a position where I was just so empty, but I did have a little piece of me that wanted to believe that this peace and this joy and contentment that I saw in Ken, I wanted to believe that was something that I could have, and that's what brought me to Heavenbound. And as funny as it is, Ken telling me I can't come made me want to come even more, and so much so that I camped out in front of his house and followed him all the way down, to Heavenbound. But that's what brought me there, and and thank God. So, and my life had really, it really seems like it had just started. I really just started to live from that day forward. So that's my story, and there's more to it. I've recorded an audio, just a quick audio. Pastor Andy asked me if I wanted to share a little bit about what brought me to Heavenbound, and unfortunately, I can't be there. Couldn't be there today. So, but when he asked me, I just pulled out my voice memo and just started talking, and I didn't realize, I ended up talking for 50 minutes. So, just sharing about my story and what brought me to Heavenbound. But this is just a short clip of what brought me to Heavenbound as far as the involvement of Kenny on, and I thought that was kind of funny, so I wanted to share that on video. But if you want to hear more, then I will send the digital audio files over to Pastor Andy, and you can get that through email or whatever and hear the full story. But God bless you guys. Hope you have a great service, and I hope and pray in any way that my little story on video here could be a blessing to you. Maybe it brought a couple laughs, and maybe my 50-minute story that I recorded could be more of a blessing and further bless you when you have time to hear it. So God bless you guys. Happy anniversary, and I'll see you soon.